Hey everyone. Okay, so it is now week 3 of RuPaul's Drag Race. They finally did something a little bit different. I like the Shakespeare element of this week's episode. But they are really playing up that young and old kind of dichotomy. They try to have the teen angst storyline with the Shakespeare Romeo and Juliet play. But they really are clocking Violet. Poor Violet. I mean, I said in the very beginning I thought she was a bitch. And when Kennedy just voiced it straight out. She just a bitch. Like she is a bitch. She's grumpy. She complains a lot. She's just not very happy as a person, it seems. At least as far as the show is editing her to be. But, they're not making things any easier on her by the fact that they keep picking her last, and they don't seem to give her credit for anything, and they do seem to all be ganging up on her. And, I mean, I guess that's kind of where some of that personality would come from, because if people were constantly belittling me and just second guessing everything I said and did, then I probably would act that same exact way. I mean, but they are actually going for her look. They're calling her Jasmine. Very surprised. Said that Jasmine, if she could last halfway through the season, would be Miss Congeniality. That would never have happened because last week on Untucked, she changed. And this week, she was just straight up bitchy. I mean, she was talking shade left and right. She was calling people names. It was an entirely different persona. She was starting to play into that young and that versus old theme that they're trying to play up this season. And she called Violet horseface, which she doesn't have a horse face. I don't know where that came from. It was funny, but I don't know where it came from. I mean, they're just making so much fun of Violet. And actually, I think Violet is pretty, very attractive. I mean, obviously there are things that she can change, like about herself, like maybe eating a meal once a week or something. I mean, there's definitely things she could improve on. But I think people need to lay off of her a little bit. But yeah, Jasmine, I thought it was irony that the first week when Jasmine had her worst look you could ever possibly imagine, coming out looking like a cocoon, or trying to look like a cocoon, but it was just a hula hoop with a shower curtain on it. She didn't go home that week. She didn't even have to lip sync for her life that week. Yet she comes out this week and in that beautiful, beautiful gown. And she has to lip sync for her life and ends up going home. Irony. It is hilarious. But then Pearl. Pearl is still, after 3 weeks, just Xanaxing her way through life. I mean, it's apparent now to all the judges, RuPaul, and all the girls. I mean, all of them have kind of clocked her for her resting bitch face and her I don't feel like I want to be here attitude. But now it's just coming across in her work too. Like when she was in the play, she was just so not there. It was so freaking boring. I would have taken Jasmine's stuttering whatever the hell Jasmine was trying to do. I would have taken that any day over Pearl. Pearl just, I don't know. And then she tried to channel some of Sharon Needles in that outfit that she had for the runway, which looked good, by the way. Pearl did a great job. It was really good. But she's starting, have you noticed, she's starting to implement white more into her outfits, which she is known for. Pearl just does a lot of white. All of her promotional materials before Drag Race was nothing but white. Was all I could find on the internet. Like, she just dressed in white all the time. But Pearl was like, I'm sorry, I've never heard of Macbeth. Call me illiterate or young or whatever you want, but I've just never heard of Macbeth. How the fuck have you never heard of Macbeth? What rock have you been living under? Okay, public school. What school did you go to? Because you were either homeschooled by someone who is completely illiterate, doesn't believe in books, or you were asleep the whole time you went through school, because everyone has heard of Macbeth. It is required learning in schools. Most people hate it. Shakespeare's not exactly the most upbeat, fun, understandable literature in the English language, but it is required reading. Everyone has heard of Macbeth. I think that was just a line for the show. She can't really be that stupid. Miss Fame. Lord, Miss Fame. I said last week, well, the week before last, because I did basically the first 2 weeks in my first review. So I just skipped last week's review, because there was no point in rehashing some of the same information I'd used in the first review. Miss Fame. I coined the term Miss Lame, which I actually don't think was originally from me. I actually think it was used on the show, because I went back and watched the second episode, and when they were picking teams, whichever team she ended up being on, they said Miss Lame, not Miss Fame, I don't believe. I went back, I rewound it, and I could swear I heard Miss Lame. So maybe that's where it came from. But man, I've been coining that frame because she is beautiful, both in and out of drag. But man, she's stupid. Like, she does not know how to act. She does not know how to dance. She has no ass. I don't have an ass either. But of course, I would have padded that if I was doing drag. No ass whatsoever. Oh my god. This week, the acting continued to be awful. Just completely awful. And Candy Ho, okay. It wasn't until the runway that I even realized that Candy Ho was still on this show. I'm being completely honest there, because there were no confessionals from her this week. There was really no airtime. We barely got to see her doing any lines. I don't even know if we got to see her doing any lines. I don't even remember when they handed out the roles. I don't remember her getting a role. Like, I don't remember any of that. It's just, it's spaced out. Totally didn't even know she was there until we actually got to see the Shakespeare video and the critiques on the runway. She's still there, believe it or not. She didn't go home that first week. Now, Katya, whatever you want to call her, Katya. Like I said, Katya, Sasha, and Kasha. I would not be able to remember any of those three. Katya, I'm starting to see her a little bit more now. She gets a lot of airtime now. And after she had lip sync, I'm starting to see her more now. And I kind of like her now. Like, she's starting to grow on me. So she's no longer completely in the shadows. But as for Kasha Davis, she's still sleeping somewhere in the back in a wardrobe trunk. Because I don't see her on stage either. I just don't see her, Candy Ho, anywhere. The only reason why I even remember Jaden being on the show is because Jaden was crying in this episode. Honestly, I mean, I like Jaden. Jaden is funny. But that whole performance, Shakespeare, was just awful. I mean, if she can cry like that, she has acting chops. So she can perform. And she should have performed better than what she did on that stage. But, again, this is not going to be a point-by-point review of the entire show, because that just takes up too much time. So, I've just basically gone over a couple of the points of the people and the personalities from the show. I was very sad that Jasmine had to go. That's the reason why in my first review I was very hesitant. I was like, if she can last halfway through the season, she would be Miss Congeniality because I like her. But I knew there were rumors out there that she got eliminated. Well, there was rumors out there she got eliminated week 1, but she didn't. There were rumors flying that she didn't make it past the 3rd episode, and that was true. She didn't make it past the 3rd episode. But you wouldn't have, if she had performed better in that play, she would have lasted. I really do think that, because that was a great look for the runway. I didn't like the beard, just like Michelle Visage said. Did not like the beard, but I didn't like any of those beards, honestly. They all looked awful. Kennedy's was the worst. Kennedy's did look like she just taped some of her hair on her face. And Kennedy was another one of those characters. I don't think I even mentioned Kennedy in my first video. I didn't remember Kennedy in the first episode, did not remember her in the second episode, but I did remember her in this episode just because of the atrocious nature of her group. Kennedy Davenport was one of the few queens that I really knew about before this season. So it's kind of interesting that you just don't see any airtime for her. This was the most airtime that she has gotten on the show. It was it was good what she said about Violet. That's what I'm gonna always remember her for. She's just a bitch. I'm gonna remember that. But anyway, we're already out of time. That is it for this week. I will see you guys next week. So long.